Howdy, welcome back to the shop. Today we're working on a little honeydew project for Mama. We're going to build her a clothes hanger, one of those umbrella looking clothes hangers. Solar powered clothes dryer things, like all the fanciful hippies have in California. So right now we're sawing out our blanks. We've got our old drill press set up here with the power down feed running, I don't know, about that many RPM right there. Looks like, maybe 60 or 70 RPM. Whoop, whoop, whoop. So we had our power down feed just a little bit too fast. Give her another squirt of juice, Elijah. And got my helper boy there being the greaser. Happy times. So here I've got my little mill set up, and I'm just using a pointed wiggler edge finder to find the center of one of the 1/4 inch holes here in my table. I've got a lot of glare and I apologize for that, but this is basically how we're going to do it. That's not bad. I've got my DRO zeroed out, and we'll jack around here and get things set up. So there's the 7 holes. I'm going to put seven rods, 7 holes in this, just because I like 7. It's a prime number. It smells like carrots. But I'm going to put 7 holes in this, equally spaced for my arms, I guess you would call them. So I'm just checking my spacing here and making sure that everything looks like it's going to work out pretty good before I commit to it. Takes me a long time to saw out these wagon wheels, so it is what it is. I take my time on them. And I'm just going to spot these in with a 1/4 inch drill, and once I get everything spotted in, then I'll take them over to my big drill press and drill the through holes on everything, just because this little machine won't near turn the drill bit big enough. So I'll get these drilled out off camera and we'll get set up over yonder. Setup on this is pretty simple. I just put 1 bolt down through the plate. That'll hold that, no more torque than I can put on with this little bitty baby mill and a 1/4 inch drill in aluminum. It's not going to move. And this gives me enough repeatability that I can do all of my wagon wheels. So we'll see you at the drill press. So here's what's going to be the bows on this thing. And I know that you probably won't be able to see this in the shot because just how small my shop is and bad camera angles and so forth. But I put a mark on this one because it is my pattern. And this is just 1/2 inch conduit. The rough length is 5 foot because it comes in a 10 foot. I sawed it in 2, so 2 5s make 10. So I'll show you kindly how I bent these. I measured back 18 inches from one end, made my mark, and I will line that up on my conduit benders and just bend this to an almost 90. Well, I hope that came out on camera. You get the idea. Okay, here's some of my way that I did this, come up with this, how my spacing worked. I knew that I needed to bore me an 1 3/16 hole through the middle, and that gives me clearance enough for my 1 inch EMT, electrical metal tubing. It's a thin wall conduit. So 1 3/16 through hole, 23 seconds through holes. Now I showed 5 in this sketch, but actually I did 7, and I just found me some sockets. I guess you could call this socket aided drafting. Pardon me. And I just kind of spaced them out. I drawed my bolt circle diameter in here, and then just took a socket about the size of my conduit, my 1/2 inch conduit, and laid it out there, and 8 times would go. And like I said earlier, I wanted 7 bows sticking out, just because, well, 7. So that's kind of how I did that. Compliments of Hirsch Feed and Farm Supply. So here's my wagon wheels. This one I did not drill it all the way through, because that's going to be the top piece, and that will sit on top of my inch conduit coming up. Then my bows will come through these like so, and then turn and go out. I'm going to, I think my next operation, I'm going to do this off camera. I'm going to drill a clearance hole in the middle of each one of these to run a sheet metal screw down to lock the bows in place. That way the bows ain't trying to turn again this. Once it's all assembled, it probably won't matter, but I don't want the bottom piece working loose and falling off or getting cattywampus or anything like that. So I will be back. Here you can see how I've got everything set up. I'm going to put a screw down through each one of these posts to hold the arms from swinging. So you can see how I've got it set up here. I'm just kind of eyeballing off the 2 holes that are odd. Got her stuck in the vise, and that almost lines it up straight up and down. And that's actually straighter than it looks on the camera. Huh, that's a weird optical illusion. Anyway, that's how I'm getting lined up to drill the holes in from the ends or in from the sides. So here's my quote-unquote setup to drill all my holes in here for the wire to go through for the clothes hanger part of it. Just a 2 by 12 clamped up to the bench. That way it holds this part flat and my hole goes straight down through there. Pretty simple. Well, that worked out pretty good. And these holes are spaced 10 inches apart. And the first one is 1 inch from the outside end. And I'm going to rig up some kind of a cap to cap that so there's not a sharp edge or the ability for water to run down the inside of this. So 1 inch, 11, 21, 31. So here's the whole mess laid upside down. I've got my rings on there, and I've got screws through the rings and into the pieces of conduit. And I just laid this upside, or actually I had it standing up when I stuck it all together, put a piece of string in there, screwed one of these off for a king, I guess you'd call it a king post, I don't know. And then I measured from the one that was fastened tight to the tips, and I kept adjusting a little at a time until I got all the tips to measuring about the same. And it worked out about 33.5 inches from inside to inside on these tips. So from there to there, about 33.5 inches. So all this does, all those screws do, is just hold the collars from falling off. Once the wire is on there, that'll hold it rigid. This stuff here is just kind of to hold it together until the wire is on there. And that's what I'm going to do next, is get the wire strung up. Well, here's what we got so far. Got the wire strung up in it, and that's just 14 gauge galvanized fence wire. Not barbed wire, just smooth 14 gauge wire. And got to run through all the holes, 4 rows of it, and coming along pretty good. Now, being my wife comes from Cornish and Welsh stock, that's going to have to be much closer to the ground. But you kind of get the idea. That's just where I could put it. I got a little old piece of pipe there clamped in the vise to hold it while I was putting it all together. So my next step is I got to machine 7 little caps to go on the end there. And I think I'll go ahead and machine them little caps out of aluminum. My goal here is to keep everything made out of either galvanized or aluminum. That way I don't have to worry about painting anything, and I don't have to worry about nothing rusting. Because the worst thing that could happen to me is my wife stain up some of her white towels or something like that on rust. That would result in my getting whipped. So I believe I'll get me some aluminum out. So here's kind of the finished project. I've got my little rounded plugs in there, got the wire on it. I even took and wrapped some tape around where the wire is twisted together to prevent snagging on clothes. If I'd have thought a little bit ahead of time, I would have put a piece of heat shrink tube over the wire and slid it up and heat shrunk that down, but that would have required 6 or 7 consecutive thoughts. There is a thrust washer up inside of here bolted in to keep the steel pipe from wearing on the end of the aluminum spider right there. But other than that, hey, it's pretty near done. I'm not going to show setting the post and all of that in this video, but I may just make a separate video on that. In the meantime, there you go. Y'all drive safe, watch for deer.